Welcome to Architecture Topics. I'm your host, Liam Karen, and today we're heading to the heart of London to explore a building that helped reshape the city's skyline, and more broadly, rethink what a skyscraper could and maybe even should be. This is the story of 30 St. Mary Axe, formerly known as the Swiss Rebuilding, or by its famous nickname, the Gherkin. But before diving into today's story, I would greatly appreciate it if you could take a few seconds to support the show. Hit pause right now and go follow Architecture Topics on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. Excellent. Thanks for that. You truly are amazing. Now let's get started. In the early 1990s, London's skyline was still dominated by St. Paul's Cathedral and the clock tower of Big Ben. Skyscrapers were rare. The City of London, the historic financial core, was filled with narrow streets and centuries-old buildings. Height, at the very least, was a controversial topic, and change came slowly. Ever since St. Paul's Cathedral became the visual heart of the city, any threat to its dominance in the skyline was met with resistance. Strict sightline protections were in place, and even whispers of building tall triggered public backlash. And it wasn't just about history. In the 1980s, Prince Charles had publicly criticized modern architecture, calling one proposed building a monstrous carbuncle. His words captured a broader mood, one that saw modernism as cold, arrogant, even un-British. So when tall buildings were proposed, they weren't just rejected for technical reasons. They were rejected as cultural intrusions, as statements of ambition that didn't fit the British temperament. London, in short, was suspicious of skyscrapers. But in 1992, a bomb exploded in the City of London. It was the work of the IRA. The target was the Baltic Exchange, a historic building from the early 1900s, clad in Portland stone, with a magnificent stained glass memorial hall inside. The blast destroyed it. The Baltic Exchange wasn't just a building. It was a monument to maritime commerce, a place where shipping contracts were negotiated under vaulted ceilings. Its destruction wasn't just structural. It was emotional. However, it was this tragedy that opened the door to a rare opportunity. At first, there was debate. Some wanted the Baltic Exchange restored, stone by stone. But the damage was too significant. The structure was unstable. And in the end, it was decided that the site would be cleared and that something new would take its place. And here's where things started to shift. The site was acquired by Swiss Re, a global insurance giant. They weren't looking for a conventional office block. They wanted something bold, efficient, sustainable, a symbolic headquarters that would signal confidence, innovation, and trust. This wasn't just real estate. It was identity. And for that, they turned to Norman Foster. At this point, Foster wasn't just a promising architect. He was already a heavyweight. By the early 1990s, Norman Foster had already reshaped parts of Britain's architectural landscape and completed some major projects internationally. His firm, Foster Associates, the later renamed Foster Plus Partners, had completed the HSBC building in Hong Kong in the mid-80s, a groundbreaking skyscraper assembled like a giant Meccano set. He designed Stansted Airport's terminal, praised for its clarity and calmness, and had worked on civic projects that showed he could be both visionary and pragmatic. He hadn't yet been knighted, though, or made a peer. He hadn't rebuilt the Reichstag in Berlin. He wasn't the global icon of sustainable architecture that he is today. And one more thing he had not done yet was design a skyscraper in London. Swiss Re's commission came at a pivotal moment, a moment when Foster was already admired, but still had something to prove. He was about to move from being a high-tech modernist to something more fluid, more expressive, and arguably more public. And 30 St. Mary Axe would become the project that marked that transformation. It was from this unlikely intersection between an ancient site, a terrorist attack, a visionary client, and a one-of-a-kind architect that one of the most recognizable buildings in the 21st century came to be. The Foster Associates team didn't start with the idea of building a glass pickle in the sky. They started with airflow, and the rest followed. From day one, sustainability wasn't a marketing afterthought. It was the core design challenge. Swiss Re wanted a building that used less energy, created a healthier work environment, and made a statement about innovation. So the design team looked at how air moves through buildings, how to cool down spaces with less air conditioning, and how to maximize the use of daylight without overheating the space. And what emerged from these explorations was this unusual shape. A smooth, curving tower that tapered at the base and at the top with a wide middle like the bulb of a flower. Or, yes, a gherkin. This shape wasn't just sculptural, it was strategic. Instead of a traditional steel-framed box with punched windows, Foster proposed a spiraling glass facade supported by a diagonal structural grid that eliminated the need for vertical columns. It gave the building both strength and flexibility. But more than that, it allowed light to penetrate deeper into the floor plates and opened the possibility for natural ventilation. Because even though the building is circular, the floors are not perfect circles. 6 triangular sections were subtracted from the edges of each slab, creating a sort of star-shaped floor plan. Every floor then rotates 5 degrees from the one below it, connecting these voids and creating 6 gentle spiraling light wells that run up the building like strands of DNA. These aren't just beautiful, they function as ventilation shafts, drawing warm air up and out through the top of the building, while cooler air is pulled in from below, a kind of passive lung. The result was a building that used up to 50% less energy than a typical office tower of its time, all with no heavy-handed mechanical systems. Just elegant geometry doing the work of machines. And here's the other twist. The airflow wasn't just better inside, it was also better outside. Because of its aerodynamic shape, 30 St. Mary Axe produces far less wind at ground level than a conventional box-like building would. In fact, early studies showed that a typical rectangular tower would have created uncomfortable downdrafts on the street, the kind of winds that whip skirts and flip umbrellas. The Gherkin, by contrast, softened the air. It hugged the city instead of battering it. But for all its elegance on paper, the Gherkin was a logistical feat in real life. The twisting, tapering form meant that almost nothing could be done in a standard way. So Foster Associates, along with Arup engineers, leaned heavily on prefabrication. Each section of the building's steel diagrid was manufactured off-site and craned into place with millimetric precision. This wasn't just faster, it made the whole construction process quieter, cleaner, and more efficient in the tight streets of the city. And while the form looks like it's made of curved glass, it actually isn't. Nearly every panel is flat. It's the geometry of the frame that gives the illusion of curvature. A masterclass in optical trickery and material economy. From the laying of foundations to the final glass panel, the Gherkin rose in just over 2 years. Not bad for a building that had never been done before. It wasn't just designed smartly, it was built smartly too. But not everyone loved it right away. Some Londoners were horrified when the first renderings emerged. It looked strange, alien, too modern. And yet, as it rose above the skyline, something changed. It didn't overpower the city. It played with it. The reflective surface mirrored the sky. The tapering profile made it feel slimmer than it was. And most importantly, it wasn't anonymous. It had character. Even a sense of humor, if you will. That's when people gave it a nickname. And the nickname stuck. The Gherkin. It opened in 2004, and almost overnight it became a symbol, not just of a new London, but of a new kind of skyscraper. One that wasn't just about height, but about intelligence, about personality, about sustainability as a design ethic, not just an engineering problem. London had a new landmark, a selfie backdrop, a symbol on postcards, coffee mugs, and BBC News intros. It won the Sterling Prize, twice in fact, once officially in 2004 and again in a public vote in 2010 as the Sterling Prize of Sterling Prizes. Even people who didn't know what a diagrid was could feel something different about it, something smarter, friendlier, almost alive. But beyond the public love and the architectural awards, the Gherkin did something even more profound. It gave London permission to go vertical. Before this building, tall towers in the city were rare and often resisted. The skyline was sacred. But 30 St. Mary Axe proved that a skyscraper could be graceful, could respond to its environment, could contribute more than just square meters of office space. And in doing so, it opened the floodgates for a new era of high-rise development in London, from the Shard to the cheese grater to the walkie-talkie. Yep, architecture doesn't escape British humor. And it didn't stop there. Around the world, architects and developers began rethinking the high-rise because the Gherkin showed that skyscrapers didn't have to be glass boxes. That geometry could be both beautiful and functional. That sustainability didn't have to look boring or even green. It inspired experiments in shape and structure from Beijing to New York. And it proved that when a visionary client meets a courageous architect, even the most conservative cities can change. So yes, it may look like a Gherkin. But 30 St. Mary Axe was never about style for style's sake. It was about reimagining the rules. And in doing so, it helped rewrite the future of architecture. That's it for today's episode of Architecture Topics. Thanks for sticking until the end. And if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to follow the podcast, leave a review, or share it with someone who loves architecture, cities, or just a good story about how things get built. I'm Liam Karen, and I'll see you next time. Until then, keep looking up.